Allison reveals huge update on Mercedes W15 car design. So we're going to be going through that and 3 other stories in today's video. So make sure to like this video, and if you want more Mercedes news content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel by hitting that red button down below. The first story is Mercedes Technical Director Allison aims for 2024 championship with upgraded Mercedes W15. Mercedes weren't only held back by their side pods, says Technical Director James Allison, who continues work on next year's W15. Whilst Max Verstappen claimed his first of 19 victories this year in Bahrain, plenty of F1 news outlets were focused on Mercedes. The German outfit failed to produce a car capable of challenging for wins, starting 2023 many steps behind Red Bull. What rubbed salt in the wounds, however, was the team's continuation of their unique side pods. When F1 started with this new generation of cars, Mercedes took the most aggressive approach with their side pods. After taking a victory in 2022, courtesy of George Russell in Brazil, Toto Wolff's personnel made the decision to pursue this zero-pod approach. Even before the start of preseason testing, there were concerns about the consequences of the decision. By the end of round 1, Mercedes realized and accepted their blunder. James Allison was swiftly brought back as technical director to overturn the situation. However, when explaining the team's approach for 2024, the Mercedes TD offered a different perspective on development. "I don't see the world as you see it. Who look at the side and decide it's a concept with our car? We certainly took a path that, from the tip of the nose to the tail, was not competitive," he told Sky F1. What caught the eye obviously were the sides, but it was certainly not a decisive factor. The concept was wrong from start to finish, and the side pods are perhaps the emblem of a team that took too long to understand which side they were on. But they are absolutely not the element that sealed our destiny. As Allison identifies, the failure at Mercedes went well beyond their side pods. The Brackley-based team introduced more conventional side pods this year, but it didn't completely reverse their fortunes. The Silver Arrows will need to address several areas for 2024. As mentioned by Allison, there are other areas of the car which aren't always visible that pay the same price. At COTA, the importance of floor height proved instrumental in the performance across the board. To contest for a world championship again, next year's Mercedes Challenger must excel in all areas. This is how Red Bull could maintain their supremacy across several circuits. Next year's preseason tests will provide the first indications of the team's winter progress. Several large-scale changes to the car have been delayed until 2024. This is largely due to restrictions from the budget cap. Aiming for the championship, Mercedes Technical Director James Allison has set high hopes for the W15 F1 car, given the ambitious program, which has helped the outfit make quite a lot of progress with next year's car. Almost every team member of the Mercedes team will be counting on the 2024 contender after a winless 2023 season that saw the outfit ditch its zero-pod car concept after a disastrous start to the year. Despite introducing a revamped chassis in Monaco, the team was able to make little progress. Eventually, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell's prowess helped the team stay afloat in second place in the Constructors' Championship, a position that almost went to Ferrari in the Abu Dhabi Grand Finale. Allison agrees that the team peaked after winning a record 8 Constructors' titles, starting from the beginning of the V6 hybrid era in 2014. The glory days also helped Hamilton win 7 titles and become one of the most successful drivers in the history of the sport. Despite going winless for 2 years, and despite considering Red Bull's dominance in the ground effect era, Allison is counting on the W15 car for 2024. When asked if Mercedes will be back to its winning ways in 2024 or require more time to recapture their former glories, he explained on the Performance People podcast, "I don't know," is the answer to that. "I hope that we have put in place enough of a program of work that we have put ourselves in with a shout to be back to competitiveness." When you say winning ways, does that mean winning a race? Does that mean winning a championship? In my head, it's only ever about championships. That's what Formula One is. It's a constructors and a drivers' championship. I hope that we have done enough to give ourselves a shout of being in a championship fight in both championships. If you look at the long march of F1 history, then the stats are against us. Teams do not bounce back from slipping from their previous peak in the length of time that we have set ourselves. But we have, nevertheless, set a pretty ambitious program. We have quite a lot of strength in depth here, and we've made quite a lot of progress with next year's car. Whether it proves sufficient or not, only time will tell. But that's what I'm hoping for us, and I know that all my colleagues and teammates around me will be hoping for the same. The second story is Lewis Hamilton is at the factory much more often to prepare W15. Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes F1 are working hard to ensure the W15 machine can produce strong results in 2024. The next 3 months will be defining for Mercedes and their F1 chances in the foreseeable future. After 2 disappointing years, time is running out to produce a car capable of fighting for world titles. There are only 2 seasons left until the regulations change in 2026. Considering the scale of these regulatory changes, teams must prepare these cars well in advance. Otherwise, they risk starting on the back foot. Therefore, Toto Wolff's team must improve with these existing cars quickly. If they cannot catch Red Bull this season, then their chances in 2025 become even slimmer. With Lewis Hamilton's contract expiring at the end of 2025, the 7-time champion is relying on a quick turnaround. In theory, last year's campaign allowed the Silver Arrows to learn from their mistakes. When the 2024 season begins, they will be expected to have a largely new car in pursuit of a more conventional side pod concept. James Allison's return to the team in many ways was an admission that the zero-pod philosophy failed. Speaking after the season ended, Hamilton reflected on his increased activity in the team. "I'm in the factory much more often now, having meetings with all the department heads to try and motivate and encourage them all," he explained. "I talk to them, show them where we need to improve and what direction we need to go in. I just try to help them be positive and to say we can do it. I also looked closely at other vehicles and asked a lot of questions just to stimulate ideas." Hamilton was vocal about his frustrations last year, seemingly never subscribing to the team's direction at the end of 2022. Nobody doubts that Mercedes lost out massively last winter by pursuing the wrong question. They were essentially forced to accept a season of damage limitation. However, it is unclear whether 2024 and 2025 can be salvaged. In theory, wind tunnel allocations and budgetary restrictions should hold back Red Bull. Still, Red Bull's relentless progression makes it difficult to doubt their development team. Until now, their understanding of these F1 cars has been unmatched by rivals. It will be up to Mercedes, therefore, to surpass expectations and announce themselves as F1 contenders in 2024. Toto Wolff conceded that Mercedes' 2022 car and its ill-fated zero-side pod concept represent unsurprisingly his biggest mistake in his years at the helm of the Brackley squad. Mercedes' reign as Formula One's dominant force was brought to an abrupt halt in 2022, as the team struggled to adapt to the new aerodynamic regulations introduced that season. The outfit's radical zero-side pod concept was an ambitious attempt to gain an edge over its rivals at the start of F1's ground effect era. It proved to be a costly misstep. The bold approach relied on creating a more efficient airflow path to the rear of the car, which would generate more downforce and improve cornering speeds. However, the design proved to be too complex and difficult to manage, leading to a number of problems, not the least of which was the car's chronic and disruptive porpoising phenomenon that made it very difficult for the drivers to control. Despite its troubles, Mercedes opted to carry the concept into 2023, spurred on by George Russell's dominant win with W13 at the end-of-season Brazilian GP. As the man with whom the buck stopped on the team, Wolff owned up to his outfit's blunder. The third story is George Russell accused Lewis Hamilton of being greedy for his 7 championship titles. Lewis Hamilton dominating F1 was a usual sight from 2014 to 2020, wherein he sealed 6 world titles on the bounce. His stint with Mercedes etched a new standard of dominance and got his championship tally to 7. However, his current teammate George Russell felt that Hamilton was just being greedy to gain the satisfaction of getting more titles. In a feature in September 2023 with his peers Lando Norris and Alex Albon on F1's YouTube channel, Russell elaborated his views on how it is different for multiple drivers on how far they can compete in F1. Some get the chance to get wins every weekend and seal championships, while some like him at Williams struggle to score points for several races. Russell stated, "Look at Lewis as an example. He wants more than 7 championships. On this, Norris and him unanimously quipped, "Greedy." The Horse 63 driver added, "That's just not cool." The 25-year-old also contrasted Max Verstappen's current competitive position with themselves, and satisfaction for him probably differs if he doesn't win and finishes only third or fifth. Even Norris and Albon agreed to this sentiment that Hamilton was in a position where he almost felt guaranteed to score points every weekend. After all, after completing 50 or 100 race wins, as Verstappen and Hamilton have, the novelty of getting a top 5 or a podium goes away. Fittingly so, for Hamilton, he raised the benchmark to topple the championship record. Meanwhile, Russell has had a contrasting start to his career. After struggling to score a few points over 1.5 seasons,